Yay.
So I'm going to make sure it's going live. You can do whatever while I introduce your intro. So it'll be automatically on your Facebook page right about now. It should be. Yeah.
Okay.
So let me see if I can quit pressing the wrong buttons and press the right ones. There. Facebook, wake up. If I can do this and I'm 69 years old, you can do it. All you have to do is sit in your living room with your pants off and watch. That's it. It's not difficult. Welcome to Comic Spot, everybody. Today, it's not about me, believe it or not. It's about my guest. Comic Spot was created so I could have people like Aniria on here. Her full name is Aniria Madrana Turney. I hope I got it right.
You did. You did.
Yay. She's over there. She wants to say hello to you all. Say something to these people. You know.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Facebook Live.
Yes. And a lot of my people, you know, Aniria, they don't always come on right at the moment. They'll come on all day and look at it. Awesome. And so don't worry if you don't see anybody. They like to troll after the fact.
That's no problem.
Right at the moment. So I'm going to make darn sure that the privacy settings is public. There, I just did that. So now you should see it on your page. Hopefully you do.
Okay.
So yeah, Comic Spot, we're going to get to know this lovely, lovely person who is hysterically funny. And let me read you the introduction that she sent me. Yes, I'm stalling. Hold up, folks. So I usually mess up every intro, no matter how much I try. So just kind of have a bet on what I'm going to mess up this time.
Linda, that's just part of your charm.
It is. It's become I couldn't have planned it better, actually. Aniria Turney, with the Madrano in the middle. Aniria Madrana Turney is a stand-up comedian and actor out of Tampa, Florida. Her journey as a stand-up comedian started during the tumultuous marriage with toddlers in tow, a full-time job, and working on her master's degree. Can you imagine, you guys? Oh my gosh. Was it hard? Yes. Yes, it was hard. I cried a lot, but comedy was my passion and I couldn't leave it behind, she says. Aniria's comedy expresses the in-your-face truth. Believe it or not, that page went nowhere. Okay, so I had to go find it again. Aniria's comedy expresses the in-your-face truth about your cultural differences, dating, kids, sex, and how men and women relate. Because she started her passion for stand-up later in life, it quickly became the therapy that helped her get through a divorce and juggling a new dating life with raising kids. Now remarried, her repertoire has expanded. Aside from stand-up, she started acting 6 years ago after one of her mentors, Dean Napolitano, urged her to try it. Oh my gosh. In those 6 years, Aniria has done theater, TV, and film. The trifecta, yes. Her favorite theater experience was playing Zoila. I think Zoila works. Is that good?
Zoila's right.
In the bilingual version of Lisa Loomer's Living Out, which premiered in Miami. She got to work alongside some well-respected Latino actors and Puerto Rican director Edgar Garcia. Edgar Garcia? Oh man, even I've heard of him and I'm white and half Jewish. Her first break in film was the Marlon Wayans. Was with Marlon Wayans in the Netflix film Naked, which I never got cast in, and I don't know why, and I really hold it against Marlon. Marlon, you got some, never mind. It's not about me. It's not about me. Which gave her the chance to become a union actor. Yay! Union actor. Other TV credits, if that isn't enough, other TV credits include NBC's Chicago Med, and Hulu's The Act with Patricia Arquette. Why am I overemphasizing? Because I'm impressed, you guys, I'm impressed. She just finished taping an episode for season 2 of David Makes Man, which will be released this fall on HBO Max. Oh my gosh. She was also voted Tampa Bay's 2017 Best Up-and-Coming Comic by Creative Loafing, and she performed at the 2019 Burbank Comedy Festival. Listen, if anybody knows anything about Creative Loafing, it's me. I don't remember the 80s or the 90s. Give it up for our amazingly talented guest today on Comic Spot, Aniria Madrano Attorney.
Great job, Linda.
I'm Scott. I'm ready to go to a nursing home.
No, that was very entertaining. I loved it.
Thank you. I throw myself into my work. What can I say? I'm a perfectionist. Talk to me about your early life. Like, I heard you on the show that we did together, and you were so good and so funny and interesting.
Thanks.
And
Thank you.
I love your comedy. I've never watched a lick of your acting. I gotta be honest. I'm not gonna lie.
It's okay.
I'm too old to lie. I can't remember the lies. I got enough trouble with what's in my wallet. So talk to me about where you came from, and where did you grow up first? I got 1001. I ask questions. This is who I am. Where'd you grow up?
Well, interesting enough, I was born in El Salvador. My mom's Puerto Rican, my father's Salvadorian, but when I was 6, we moved to Florida, to Gainesville, Florida. And I was 6. It was still a culture shock at that young of age. My parents had gotten accepted to the University of Florida to continue their higher education. And so I lived like my elementary school years there. And then we went back to Puerto Rico, and I did junior high in Puerto Rico. And then not back, we went to Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. And then after junior high, I was back to Florida. So I've spent most of my life in Florida.
Got it.
Yeah.
And your entire life, do you remember being funny the first time you started talking, or how did funny come out of you?
How did that come out? You know, I'll tell you, when my parents were students and I was in elementary school, my first memories of comedy were Carol Burnett, because they watched that religiously. Yes. And they were, 2 young parents going to college, trying to raise 2 kids. So they were under a lot of stress. And I really enjoyed watching them when they would watch Carol Burnett. They also loved the Andy Griffith Show. I remember those 2 things. And just seeing how it was like a little break from all the stress that they were having. I think I really enjoyed that. And then as I got a little bit older, I started doing things mainly for my dad's stupid things, like dancing like Frank Sinatra or to Frank Sinatra, and he would laugh. And he too has kind of the same sense of humor. And that's when I started realizing, this is cool, but I didn't start doing it till I was in my 30s. Oh no, kind of later, but it was just one of those things. I grew up with parents, very stress education a lot, having a comfortable job so you can live comfortably. And so I kind of did that, went to college, got married, had the kids, and then I became a single parent. So I was trying to make a better life for the kids. So I got my master's degree, but I couldn't let go of comedy. I started doing comedy in my 30s, but it was very spotty. Like I did it for 3 months and I didn't do it for a couple of years and I did it for a year. Just life was overwhelming.
Yes.
And then when I came back, I just said, I have to stay. I have to stay, and I have.
Yes. So how many years have you stayed and grinded since you decided, yes, I have to stay?
I would say, let's see, my daughter's 19. I started a couple of months after I found out I was pregnant with her. I mean, I stopped after a couple of months. I would say maybe 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
My hat's off to you for all of that.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. So the very first time you decided to do public performing, was that in school, or you never donned a stage of any kind of acting or comedy until in your 30s?
Well, in high school, I took a drama class because I thought, oh, this is interesting. That'd be cool. And I was scared to death every day in that class. And I was very shy. I remember skipping class because I didn't want to have to be on a stage. And then when I got to college, I wasn't really performing, but I started realizing that I didn't mind doing presentations. So like whenever we had group projects, I was the only one that said, I'll do the presentation. And I think that was kind of a sort of thing that I started to really enjoy. And I could tell I was good at, because I was comfortable on the stage or in front of the class, I should say.
Yes.
And I would have my little, funny comments here and there.
So are you good at ad-libbing funny things in the moment?
I am, but that really, as a comedian, that really comes with time.
Yes.
Because, when you start stand-up, you're so scared to be up there. The first few years, not even the first year, just the first few years, you're scared. You don't know how people are going to react because, as you know, you can do a joke for 6 months and then you go to a crowd and they don't laugh at it, and it's so unpredictable. So there's always that nerves. So after a few years, I wish I could think how many years, I started to ad lib. When I got comfortable with myself, I think, when I got a little bit more confident as a comic, then I can definitely, I ad lib. Yeah, I ad lib a lot and I love it. I know it's not easy for some people because it throws them off, but it's something I've really been enjoying and happy I could do.
Yes. I think the audience can tell, this is my theory that I came up with, has no merit other than to me.
I'm sure.
I think the audience can tell when you're coming up with something in the moment, and I think it's funnier than anything you could rehearse.
I think you're probably right, because I think it's so organic. I mean, as comedians, we know we're sad, and we have to be just excited every time, even if it's the 57th time you tell the same story. And it looks organic because you already know kind of like how you're going to hit your punchlines and things. But there is something different about ad-libbing. It's so in the moment and so spontaneous. And I feel like what you're saying, they can tell, because I think you kind of react a little different as a comedian. And then when you hear the audience react, you're like, oh, I did that. That's awesome. And I think you can see it in the comedian's face.
I think so. Who has been your inspiration as an American comedian, or a Latina comedian who's American or not? Who has inspired you?
There's been quite a few. Yeah, there's been a few. First of all, Carol Burnett, because she was my first exposure. I admire her, and oh my God, I don't know what I would do if I met her in person. She's a big influence because she was my first experience. So I always went in with the mindset that, oh, women do this. Then when you start doing it, you realize how much harder that road is for a female. So that made me even admire her more, because I'm like, wow, look, she had her own sketch show. Like, that's big. Which is the same with like Lucille Ball,
Yes.
Really admired her. The person that really, I think, set it off for me after seeing women was John Leguizamo.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in my 20s and I saw him do one of his one-man shows. It was called Speakerama, hard to get a hold of nowadays. And when I heard him do all the different characters and the stories he was telling, like, I could relate to them. I had never seen that before. I loved comedy. but I didn't hear those stories about being Latino and growing up in the US, or having that one, like he had in the show I was watching, he had a brother who wanted to deny his Latinness. So he dyed his hair blonde, things like that. So wow. It really resonated. And I thought, wow, I've got stories I would love to tell, of the same kind of, people could relate, I guess, or people like me could relate.
Yes.
So he's a big influence. Joan Rivers is a huge one.
Yes.
What I love about Joan Rivers is that same thing, trailblazer in her era. She had to deal with the whole, oh, ladies don't say that, this is TV, blah, blah, blah. But then she kind of made her own path. And I saw her 2 years before she passed away, performing. And what really amazes me about her is that compared to her counterparts, she really evolved with the times. Like, she didn't stop writing and she didn't stop changing with society, because that's what we do, Linda. As comedians, we comment on what's going on at the moment. And so often I've seen comedians of her age or of her era kind of telling the same stuff that they did back then. So I really admired that about her.
Yes, that's a very good point. I mean, she got on board with the LGBTQ gay scenario, had a huge following. She brought her daughter along. That made it more interesting. The fashion,
yes,
all that, showing us her life, getting on The Apprentice.
Yeah. Yeah, she's amazing. I really miss her, and I wish I would have been able to meet her. One of my mentors, Dean Napolitano, who got me into acting, he used to open for her, so I'm so jealous.
Yes, I knew that name. I didn't know where I knew it from, but I knew when you said it, that was a big one.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
So if she was still alive, maybe she could follow in number 45's footsteps and be the president today.
Oh, can you imagine? Oh my God.
She'd be cracking jokes about it.
Those speeches would be phenomenal.
I loved her so much,
Yeah.
We all felt like we knew Joan Rivers.
Yes, I think so, because she expanded, like you mentioned, in all those other areas of entertainment, including being on TV, as herself. You got to see different slices of her.
Yes.
That you don't see in a lot of entertainers.
Right. Yes. The relationship, the rocky relationship that she let us in on between her and her daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Endeared us to her. I mean, talk about.
It made her real. It made her real.
Yes. And her grandson and all the shenanigans. I mean, you just fall in love with her more and more. I got to interview somebody that was on her writing team. I don't recall his name right now.
Yeah.
Somebody that's in Arizona now, a bigger than life persona kind of guy. And he's one of my interviews. And I don't know who anybody is until I get him on the show. I don't even read. You send me an intro, I don't even read it till I say it out loud, because I want to be authentic and I really want to be surprised at what I'm reading and show that real. I don't want to fake that,
Yeah.
I get this guy on, I don't know who he is from Adam, right? I knew who you were from being on a show. I knew less about him. And he was like I think he was her head writer. And so Tony something, I don't know if you'll know who I'm talking about. And so I'm interviewing him and I get all done and we get to the part about Joan and her dying and everything. And he's still grieving about it. And I said, I've heard that she's a wonderful person. He tells me a story about how she, those necklaces she sold on QVC, she'd always wear a state, that if somebody would say to her, I like your necklace, she would take it off and give it to them.
Oh, that's sweet.
And like the things that you can learn so much from other people. Like, who are some comedians you've met along the way that you've learned things about them we wouldn't know?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. things about them that you wouldn't know that I've met along the way. I can't think of any. I think a lot of times, unless you get, it's hard to get really close to comedians.
It is.
Yeah.
This is the guy I interviewed, Tony Tripoli.
Oh, I think I've heard that name.
He's very funny.
Very cool. Look
anyway, yeah. So I didn't know who he was, but so like you, do you aspire to get to know comedians who are Latino, like Paul Rodriguez, and the list goes on?
Yeah, I would love to. You know, living in Florida is a little bit harder. And I think about that all the time, because even when I started doing comedy, being a woman and being Latina in Florida, that's very conservative politically, religiously, in every dimension. Yes. It was difficult. And so, yeah, I would love to be able to, you know, chat with like Felipe Esparza, Paul Rodriguez, gosh, I can't think of anybody. Oh, George Lopez, all of those, you know, I'm sure they had their challenges. It wasn't all rosy for them, and maybe how they get inspired writing the cultural stuff, you know?
Yes. Like, what is it that you're aspiring to do? Forget about other comics who think they're famous or are. What about you? What are you trying to accomplish in your comedy and acting? Where are you going?
Yeah, you know, I think about that all the time. I think my goal would be that I could honestly make a decent living doing both, or one over the, I don't want to say one over the other, because I love acting and I love stand-up, but you know, stand-up is stand-up pay. Yes. Until you're famous. Like, I don't care to be famous. I just want to be able to pay my bills. But in doing so, I would like to still keep touring, or, you know, performing comedy, but I also want to act, and I would like to work in comedic projects, but I also would like to work more in, you know, like real stories, like stories about people's struggle, whether, you know, whatever the story may be. It doesn't have to be a Latino story. Of course, that would be great. But I just think that with acting, it's such a opportunity to tell other people's stories in a very impactful way. So I think I would love to do that.
So do you mean like write jokes for other people about their lives, or write jokes that you tell, or write stories about other people's lives, or a host of a show interviewing people?
I think for writing comedy for other people, I don't think so. I don't know, that might be hard for me. I'm not sure. I could help people because we do with my other mentors, Pretty Paul Parsons. He was the first person that ever was in my comedy life. We did a lot of writing with other comedians. We would sit around, and I loved, you know, helping people with stuff and getting help from them. But I think I would much rather like, I want to keep writing about myself and aging, and, you know, just how my life has been going, you know. There's so much funny things, as you know, when you're in your different stages of life that people don't talk about, especially women. And so just having a little chat about that, I really like. But as far as impactful stories, I don't know. I've never really tried to write like a impactful story. I'm so used to writing comedy, but I wouldn't mind acting in one. Given a role where I'm telling a story that, you know, people need to know. I mean, I think that there's a lot of great stories that are fun, but I would like to do something really impactful. It's hard to describe. Like, I can think of movies about things, you know, that yes. I see, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that happened. So stuff like that. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. You know, like, I like doing comedy, but I'm not challenged to do comedy just for comedy. It's got to have like a reason, you know, like to make sad people happy, to, yeah. You know, like I'm very connected to like veterans,
Yes.
or senior citizens or homeless shelters, like that battered women's shelters, making them,
Yeah.
every Tom, Dick, and Harry just doesn't interest me unless like we're going through a pandemic, then I want to make them happy.
That's pretty cool. I think that's very important because those are people that don't get to see what regular people get to see. They don't get to go to a show. They don't get to, and there is a lot of satisfaction in that. I've done a couple of shows for caretakers of patients of dementia. You know, they're constantly dealing with the patient at a little break, and that is very rewarding.
It is. That's interesting that you bring that up. In '96, I got hit by a drunk driver and I got diagnosed with mild dementia. And my daughter had to take care of me and it lasted for 16 years, too long for her. And she burnt that H out.
Wow.
It was horrible. And, those caregivers are the reason so many people are still alive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard work. My father has dementia, but he lives in Costa Rica and his wife is much younger than him. And I feel for her because she bears it all. Mm-hmm. And I've had him here for an extended period of time and it's not easy.
It's really not easy.
I'm glad to hear you're okay though. My goodness.
Yeah. The VA hospital gave me the biggest gift. They said, "You're not bad enough. Go heal yourself."
Wow.
And so I just started healing myself and I'm finally able to remember all my lines on stage.
That's fantastic. I would have never known. I would have never known.
Yeah. Like if you hold those things in because you're afraid what people would think and they won't book you. And any secret you hold in holds you back more than the secret.
It's so true. And I'm glad you brought that up because when it came to acting, I think that was the challenge from going from comedy to acting because as a comedian we can make jokes about that stuff. We laugh about our pain and write funny things about our pain, but when you're an actor, the only way to be successful is to face that pain head on, and that's very hard when you've spent 10 years, whatever it is, laughing about it and just scratching the surface. So yeah. And I understand that, you try to hide, I'm diabetic. I'm like, I don't want people to know I'm diabetic. Well, I just told her, maybe they won't book me because I'll pass out on set or something.
Exactly. When I started with my brain injury, I fell off the stage 3 times at my first club.
No,
and it was high up there. It was a high
Holy
stage.
Cow. How did you cope?
I just was embarrassed and I just said that I fell, and they were more concerned if I was gonna. They were wanted to make sure I was okay, but when they found out that I put all the blame on myself, I'm not gonna go say, if you turn off those bright lights, I would have seen that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna change the whole comedy scene for me. If I'm on a stage that's elevated, I have to be careful and cognizant.
Wow.
So yeah. But yeah, and I was using notes for 6 years. People wanted to take a smoke break when I got on stage. So finally, I've had that breakthrough that I've been waiting for where I could I actually know what my set is in the last year. It's like, whoa, I know.
Well, that's really recent. That's really recent. Well, congratulations, because I know as a comedian, any kind of breakthrough is huge.
Yes.
And this is even bigger.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you about something. You've been in the business 17 years, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in 17 years, at what year were you in your comedy life when you started knowing your persona?
That takes a long time. People think it's so easy. You hear comedians say, oh, I've been doing it 3 years and I'm ready to headline. And I'm thinking, you got to find your persona first. Let me think, because I would say the first 5 years, you're kind of still testing the waters, and it may be a maturity thing. Maybe it comes quicker when you're older. I don't know. I don't know if it's the time you've been doing comedy or, you know, I don't know how it is for you, but as I've gotten older, I've grown to like myself more. And when you like yourself more, you kind of don't give a F, you know, you don't give a fuck about things. And so you tend to start talking about, you know, whatever. And I think it could take years. I would say at least 5 to find your persona. I'm trying to think, I can tell you this, that I had breakthroughs, I think every 5 years on something different. So like my first 5 years, I was still too wordy. Then my next 5 years, I think I probably started blending my persona and really owning it. And I think once you own it, then you kind of, your writing starts to kind of go along with what with what you've owned. And now this pandemic has really shown me my writing has switched, because now I've had time to write a little bit more, and I've really looked at what I was joking about before, and it's different. You know, I used to talk a lot about dating, and I still do, you know, about what some, you know, what I observe in dating. But now I'm also talking about, you know, the crazy stuff that my husband does, or I have a dog and she's nuts, or I have a daughter and she's bicultural and she's nuts, you know. So you start finding all this nuttiness in different things that, you know, when my daughter, for example, was younger, you know, they have their little personality, but when they become adults, and they really got their personalities and they're, you know, then things become funny. Different things become funny with age.
Yes.
And so I think you're still the same person because your points of view are very similar, but now you're talking about different subjects, which is really interesting.
I like that. Is there any subject that you stay away from? I have a broken relationship with my 44-year-old daughter since the day I started comedy. So I don't talk about my daughter.
I see. Yes.
You know, because I'm not at the point where that's ever going to be funny. And I don't want to bring it up and have a meltdown or be saying something and thinking something else. It's not funny. You know,
yeah. Things that are really close like that are definitely hard to joke about. There, you know, there are things that I just don't find funny. Some subjects,
What do you not find funny? Everybody has something they don't find funny. Like the last guy I interviewed, he doesn't like self-deprecating humor. And I just find it fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
What turns you off?
Yeah, what turns me off? Pot humor. You know, like there's so much of it out there. It's like, what can you say that's brand new? You know, it's really hard. I never talk about any kind of handicaps or anything like that. I've never really found that funny. I feel, I don't know. I just don't. And I don't know, overly, when guys talk too much about women's, you know, like having sex with women, I think that's been so overdone, you know, and I get it. Yeah, so overdone. And I do appreciate if it's a clever joke, you know, but the humping the stool, that's, I hope nobody's doing it anymore. But things like that, it's like, oh, here we go again, you know.
Now, if I hear one more penis joke.
Yeah, I mean, if it's creative though. If it's creative though. And you know, another thing that does turn me off is when male comics are very, and I'm not picking on the men, I know it seems like it, there's things females do too, I'll get to that, but when men are they're always like, I can't think of the word right now, but when they're too like machista, like what's the word in English?
Macho?
Yeah, like the jokes are all like this, you know, like this bitch is stupid or stuff like that. Like, Not to the extent of Dice Clay, but you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Like that kind of humor, I do not like it. I think we worked so hard to leave that stereotype behind that when I hear that, it just, ooh.
It's like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I can hear other things if they're creative. Like Bill Burr has a joke and it's kind of a domestic violence joke, but not really. But it's so creative. I laughed. I mean, I wouldn't watch him talk a whole hour about it, but I thought it was funny. But, you know, when you get kind of that 1980s, 1990s Andrew Dice Clay type of stuff, I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it a lot. Like, I understand exactly what you mean. What is the thing that always makes you laugh in comedy? Like for me, when I don't know why, but ever since I was little, the word shit makes me die laughing.
You know, definitely potty humor, fart humor makes me go crazy. It's funny. It's so funny to me when anybody talks about farts. Like sometimes I feel like my humor is like a 14-year-old boy. You know, you can never go wrong with farts.
What about poop jokes?
Yeah, poop jokes are good. Poop jokes are good. I heard God, I wish I could remember the comedian. I saw it on Instagram and it was a girl talking about how and I apologize because obviously I don't remember it word for word, but the idea was funny, where she talks about how her husband takes 45-minute shits. And one time she really had to go and they had just moved and she just couldn't hold it and he wasn't getting out of the bathroom. So she took a box from their moving and just went in the box like a cat, you know? And I thought that was so funny because that might have been true. That might have been true because I'm married and I know what she's talking about.
Oh my gosh. Do you have a joke in your repertoire of jokes that rarely gets the laugh you want it to, but you refuse to give the joke up? I do. Almost everybody that's come on here does.
Yes, let me think.
I'll tell you mine while you're thinking.
Yes, tell me.
So my parents survived the Holocaust.
Wow.
And so when I go on stage, I'll feel the audience out. And if I think that, 1/3 of the audience could be New Yorkers or Jewish or not anti-Semitic, I'll do the joke as my opener and I'll say, "Hi guys, I've got great news for you. My parents survived the Holocaust." And then I'll sit there and just watch the crowd, the sphincters tightening. And then I go, "But no, it's good news because it was the Holocaust that did exist."
That's funny.
And it doesn't.
People are definitely sensitive. I think back when I was, it's so interesting. Back when I was younger, I did a couple of priest jokes, and it always, and it was very hit or miss. Some days it would be funny, and some days people are so offended, and it was my earlier days, so it was hard for me to figure out how to react to it. Sometimes I get angry anyway. I learned to deal with it. But I always found that interesting because I feel like I'm not making this up, Like there's a whole movie out, in the past decade about it now. Like, why are you so ooh about it? Yes. And that always kind of made me mad. Like you guys, this is not a secret. There is bad behavior in the church.
Absolutely. Why are you going to tighten up your sphincter?
Yeah. And I think that as a comedian, we want to bring up things that people are afraid to talk about. Somebody told me something that I'll never forget. He said to me, comedians are here to bring awareness to subjects that people don't want to talk about. And I'm like, wow, that makes our job sound so important. And to some extent, it's true.
Yes, it is. And, like we start out as one kind of comedian and then we get layers and we get confidence. And, you know, at first I probably everybody, I was doing jokes just because they were freaking funny, not because they had anything to do with me. And then you find out, oh, you can actually take off your mask and let people know who you are, where you come from, you know.
Yes.
You start.
Yeah, because people are living with the same insecurities, you know, manifested differently, but we're all insecure, whether it's something in our childhood, our upbringing. And when you take that mask off, like you described, I feel like it just kind of makes it okay. Like you're not the only one.
Yes. So like, I've done jokes about having brain trauma. And for 6 years, I was opening up and explaining why I had notes, you know, hey, you know, I have things fall out of my head. So I have notes, you know, like the weird thing, you know, when you forget like 3,000 things in a row, all of a sudden the doctors don't want you to carry a gun, you know, like, and then you're dumping all this TMI on the audience, and then you know, come along for the ride. It's going to be funny now that I freaked you out, you know. It's like, I don't really like talking about my brain anymore. You know, to me, that was low-hanging fruit I had to do to explain why I was looking at notes.
Yeah, yeah. So do you feel now you wouldn't do that, but now you can drop, instead of making it a big deal, I guess you could write jokes about it.
Yes.
You know, that's interesting. That's interesting because I can understand why you would do that. I've seen comedians that have something obvious and that's the first thing they talk about.
Yeah. And people would tell me, oh, you should say I had brain injury, blah, blah, blah. And then you should say it again. Like you forgot.
Like because of your brain injury?
That's not funny. That's so hacky.
We said it at the same time. Yeah, it is hacky. I think when you make it personal, it's original.
Yeah.
You know, it's original.
With me, it took 3 neuropsychologists 2 years to diagnose that I had a brain injury. And I knew the minute of impact I was goofier than shit. So who had the brain injury?
Exactly. See, and that's funny. And and I am assuming that's true. Is that true?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's very funny because you're turning it around like who's got the brain injury. Yeah. And it's funny and it makes sense because I'm sure you really thought that.
I did. I'm like, how long is it supposed to take you guys? Like, we need to check this out.
Yeah. Wow, you have a very interesting journey, Linda.
Thank you. Well, we're not supposed to be here about my journey, but I threw it out there. So, is there anything that I didn't ask you during the interview that you would be remiss? Like something you're passionate against, how people are treating other people, or how we should be better humans going through our pandemic, or your comedy, anything you didn't get to cover? You can have 5 to 10 minutes to talk and I'll be quiet.
Sure. I guess the thing I would want to say is that as artists, for the artists or for anybody really listening out there who has a dream or something they really want to do, and what happens is you come upon, how do I do it? And then once you start doing it, you get a challenge and you're like, oh, this is too hard. Oh, I'll never be able to do it. Don't say that you're never going to be able to do it. Find it within you to keep going, because if you give up, then it's definitely never going to happen. And it's not going to be easy. Your journey is going to be full of, I wish I was me. Why do they get it? Or I can't do this. This is ridiculous. Why did I even try it? And don't say those things. Remember that it's not ridiculous. It was something that was valuable to you, and just keep going. And you just never know when the stone is going to turn in your favor. But if you give up, it never will.
I love that. Now is there more you wanted to say?
No.
You're in Florida, and Florida's opened up. I mean, like Jimmy Schubert moved from Los Angeles to Florida because Florida is a real hot spot of comedy right now.
Oh, I honestly did not know that. I didn't know that it was a comedy hotspot. I can tell you that when I went to the Burbank Comedy Festival and got to meet comics from LA, it really was an eye-opener how much more opportunities for comedians there were in Florida for actual work. You know, I think that was something somebody had told me before, and I didn't really get it until I went to Burbank. Florida does have a lot of work. You know, you can get paid as a comic compared to other places. Like I know LA, it's, you know, there's a lot of comedians and everybody's trying to, you know, get discovered, and I get that. But here you could actually work.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wasn't aware that it was a hot spot, but now that you mention it, I can see why. You know, we have a lot of communities here where the you know, like that people live in, and these community centers, they put on comedy shows. So that's a job opportunity.
Wow.
You know, there's obviously you can do fundraisers because there's fundraisers everywhere you go, not just in Florida. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of comedians. I do got to hand it to the comedians in Florida. A lot of them create their own opportunities. You know, they go to non-traditional places and have shows. And you do see that. I know you see that a lot in LA too. You're out of Las Vegas?
Yes.
Okay. You'll have to tell me what it's like there. But there are a lot of opportunities here for work for a comedian. So yeah.
Wonderful. So what city in Florida are you in? Or town?
I'm outside of Tampa in a little town called Valrico. It's like suburbia / country. But that's where I'm at, which is, you know, I got Orlando nearby, which is only like 2 hours. Miami's about 4 hours away.
Well, I need to wrap up and go to the next person. Today I booked 4 people for whatever reason. Oh, and the next person is just doing music. So I won't really have to talk. So
that's excellent.
That's good. I won't drink as much coffee to wet my whistle.
Well, Linda, thank you for having me. I really, really enjoy this. I enjoyed talking about myself, but I also enjoyed learning about you.
Thank you so much for being so kind and patient and coming on today for my people to get to know you. And I'll type my afterthoughts later on tonight to this post.
Okay.
And any links that you want people to follow you on, will you type those in the Facebook message so that I'll add
Yes,
those?
absolutely.
Please. Any upcoming shows, any websites, any merchandise, any PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, anything.
Okay, I will. You want me to send it, right?
Yeah, type it in the Facebook message, please.
I will do. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Linda.
Yay, thank you so much, you guys. Aniria Medrano, attorney.
Yay.
Help her career. Everybody. Bye.
All right. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.